And just let me know you see yourself. Greg?
When I see myself. Not yet. Not yet. I don't see it. Oh, wait a minute. Well, I'm looking at the wrong place, dude. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. I'm the one who puts it on Facebook. There it is.
There it is.
Sean McFadden's name is spelled correctly. Life is good. All right. Now, so assume that everything you hear from this moment, I'm assume that your mic is. Okay, ready whenever you are.
I'm ready.
And take it, Greg.
Welcome everyone. It is 6:09 on Monday night, and you're listening to the 226th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour, right here on www.hamiltonradio.net Channel 2. I'm your host, Greg Rapport. If you're new to the show, I'm the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. We provide one-to-one mentors to vulnerable youth for the purpose of coordinating the care and services that they need to thrive. We try to help young people avoid some of the horrible pitfalls that they're likely to face when they don't have a proper safety net. This program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of Doc G, William Saunders, Ruben Rodriguez, and all the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Ruben is on the big board tonight. Robin is producing. So good to have both of you with me every week. It's so wonderful. And so good to have you listening at home, from your computers, in your cars, Certainly, I guess not on your radios, but any other way that you can receive this, I'm glad you are. And please take a moment, if you're looking at us on Facebook or YouTube, I need you to hit buttons for me. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, and especially if you're on Facebook, the share button. Because you know what? We hit 40,000 listeners at one point. And we didn't do that all by ourselves. We did that with people like you who were willing to share this information with the people in their social media groups. And you have to believe that the topic we're going to talk about tonight is not only happening here in the Trenton area, which is where my guest is from. This is happening everywhere in the country. What we're going to talk about is everywhere, especially where you live. And if you want to know about child welfare, if you want to know about community betterment, this is the only show where you can come to get the whole truth. And I promise what you will hear tonight is not going to be on the nightly news. Because tonight we're going to focus on what we can do to help people survive and thrive, people who have been living in traumatic circumstances, people who need a bit of a hand. The era of just pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is just long over. I was having this discussion this morning with a person. We were talking about a 17-year-old needs to go to school, but also needs to have a job, has to be doing both of those things at the same time. And the biggest problem was like transportation. How would this person get to the school? How would they get to the job? It's just simply isn't there. And these are the things that we have to talk about and we have to share with other people, because that's the only way change happens. Foster children, you may not be aware of this, but they don't run around screaming, "I'm a foster kid, please help me." If you're a youth in foster care, the first thing that you feel is humiliation. What's wrong with your family? And those young people just don't talk about it. So someone has to be their voice, and that's us. Now, I want to tell you just for a moment about the Bridges to Employment program, because it's really quite amazing. It's hard to imagine. Could you imagine that you could progress a full grade level equivalent in school, a full grade level in just 8 weeks? And I'm here to tell you that it is. So let's do a little bit of math together, shall we? Okay, 8 weeks to do a full grade level. So let's say you come into the Bridges to Employment program and you're scoring in the 6th grade level. Make you go home mad, ready to throw your books down and say, well, this clearly isn't for me. I guess I will have to live my life without having an education. And the answer is no, you don't have to. Because in 8 weeks, you can make up a grade level. That means if you start out at the 6th grade level, and we need to get you to a 10th grade level to qualify for all kinds of post-secondary careers that can pay you a real living wage. And you are 4 grade levels away from having that, which is not that much. Because if you think about it, 8 weeks per grade level, 8 times 4 means 32 weeks. You'd be ready to go on and make real money with your life. Now, anybody who heard me say 8 times 4 and 32 didn't come into their head immediately, if you were ever in foster care, you need to call me right away. We'll start by working on your times tables, okay? So if you were ever in foster care, if you ever had a foster care case number, you could be adopted, you could be reunited at this point if you ever had a foster care case number and you're between the ages of 16 and 24. And what you want to do is make enough money to support yourself, to have a real life, to not be beholden on the government sticking its foot on your neck. If you want to be in charge of your life, you need to call me right away. 609-306-0821 is the number. Also, later in the show, it's 3 kinds of things that we are officially commemorating this month. One, as I'm sure you know, is Pride Month, right? That's all over the news. Everybody saw, and we're going to talk a little bit about Pride Month tonight. But also, it happens to be PTSD Awareness Month. And it also happens to be Gun Violence Awareness Month. So each of the weeks that we have this show this month, we're going to talk about one of those 3 things. And what amazes me is how they all kind of tie together. how youth who grow up in the environment of what they call as LGBTQ plus nowadays, which I'm not sure should all be lumped together, to be honest with you, because I'm learning about very different types of people within those groupings, some similar, some contradictory, but nonetheless, it's Pride Month, and PTSD is something that is very prevalent among the, if you want to call it as one community, the LGBTQ plus community. Gun violence is becoming more a part of the LGBTQ plus community now, because for some reason lunatics want to shoot people if they identify as anything other than what's always been referred to as the typical male-female gender kind of thing. So these things all kind of flow together, and we're going to talk about that later on in the show, okay? But what I want to do now is introduce my guest to you, because I've actually been hoping to have Urban Promise be on our program for about 3 years or so, and it never quite worked out. And here they have a brand new executive director, and he was just so more than willing to join me tonight. And so, Sean McFadden, welcome to the Age Out Angels Radio Hour.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Listen, there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about with you tonight. So I want you to give the umbrella view of what Urban Promise Trenton is, so that people know where we're coming from here.
Urban Promise Trenton is an after-school program that has college readiness, skills readiness work, career readiness work, and we have an after-school program in which our street leaders, who are our teens from that are in high school, they help out with our youth who are in grades 1 through 8 during high school. So they help tutor them. We give them a job. Our street leaders have a job. They help tutor our kids from grades 1 through 8. And we also help them with scholarships, college readiness programs such as FAFSA, essay writing, teaching them how to be professionals as well. It's a big thing. And overall, we're just preparing them for their futures, make sure that they are able to access the resources and information they need to make something of their lives other than what they thought was possible.
There's so much available out there that I find children who have been sort of sequestered within an urban environment don't really get to know about.
Right.
Like if someone in their family or in their group doesn't work, say at Novo Nordisk, which is close enough by here, it's almost like the guy who's sitting on top of the ocean starving to death with all the fish
right,
underneath, and he just can't get to them. The kids just don't know. They know retail, right? They know retail. They know fast food, and those are kind of the lowest paying jobs there are. They're just
and on a larger scale, they know robbing and stealing, because when they can't read or be able to fill out a job application or have that access to be able to fill out a job application, that just becomes the next easiest thing. And it's not their fault, but we have to have programs like Urban Promise, who does supplementary education where they aren't learning in the classrooms, and we come and we help fill those gaps and meet them where they are and help them access the information.
What would be an example of that? Like, what would you teach a kid that they wouldn't necessarily learn in the school? Like, do you teach how to interact with police, for example? Like, do you teach things like that?
So what do I mean by that is I worked as a dean of students for many of years, and a lot of kids that have behavioral issues that come to my classroom, there's a specific time in the day when this happens, reading or math. So when this student can't read or isn't able to read, he or she gets in trouble, and then the whole class is not able to read, and then that just continues day after day after day, and that kid is never able to read or never able to get the chance to read. So now in the school system, they're pushing you along. You can't read, but you're in the 5th grade, you're in the 6th grade, you're in the 7th grade, you're in the 8th grade, but you can't read. How did you get there? Right. So that leaves us no choice once they're finished with school. All right, everyone pushed me through, but I still can't read. What is there left for me to do?
Exactly. And if something should happen where you need to have money fast,
right, you're left with one option. So we try to fulfill it. We try to fill those gaps, and we're teaching them how to read, teaching them how to fill out a job application, how to write an essay, how to do the things that may help them in their future other than what they see around them.
Right. And so what you're talking about now is sort of that like if you had to give it a title, it'd be like sort of reading for life skills.
I call it community building through academics.
Okay, that works.
Because I feel like we can build the community up through giving them the resources and information they need to build themselves up in, and then it'll continue generation to generation. So if I'll say our first through eighth graders now build themselves up, the whole child, and able to access reading and able to access how to tie a tie, just professionalism in itself. They're able to pass that on to their kids, and their kids are able to pass that on to their kids. And now we have just built up the community through generation after generation after generation.
Cool. Well, guess what? The American Youth Policy Forum did an alternative education survey. Okay, so Bridges to Employment is a perfect example of an alternative education setting.
Right.
Your after school program, perfect example,
right.
of an alternative education setting. A charter school, right? Perfect example of an alternative education setting. Well, so why are these alternative education settings so necessary? And it's because, clearly the traditional structure of education doesn't necessarily serve the challenges that every population faces, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so alternative education settings. This is an article written by Gemma Tomasello for the American Youth Policy Forum. Alternative education settings are designed to better reflect and support students not served well by the traditional school setting. Often these schools are striving to meet the academic as well as social, emotional, and personal needs of students who experience significant barriers, such as poverty, teen pregnancy and parenting, unhousing, high mobility, and involvement in the foster care or the juvenile justice systems. So, yeah, I mean, if you put all of those things together in one barrel, you can see how traditional school, which was timed to purposefully coincide with getting kids out of parents' hair so they could go to work. I mean, that's why do we have school the way we have it, right?
Right.
Parents need to go to work, and then in the summertime, the kids need to be in the damn fields working to help with the harvest. That's why there's school. So here we are, like 200 years after the Industrial Revolution, almost 150, but we're still locked into this same system. And that's what happens in these in government situations where there are just so many people who are making their living from a structure that exists, whether it's good or bad. Nobody wants to give it up. All right, so the American Youth Policy Forum recently conducted a professional field trip or study tour to Indianapolis, Indiana for state and district education leaders to explore how to leverage opportunity in policy and practice to create highly quality alternative education settings that better serve traditionally underserved students. Below are 5 key takeaways drawn from schools that they visited for better serving traditionally underserved youth. So point number 1 that they make is remove barriers. All right. And the example that they use is actually operated by Goodwill Education Initiatives. The Indianapolis Metropolitan High School is a free public school designed as a best fit for students experience significant barriers. I wonder if the Trenton version of that would be Daylight Twilight.
Probably.
School, right? A free public high school designed as a best fit for students experiencing significant barriers. At Indy Met, empowerment coaches work directly with students on academic and post-secondary planning, but also work with family members on goal setting and barrier removal. So we're seeing the beginnings of don't just work with the kid, work with the whole family.
Absolutely.
That's what's starting to come out now. Empowerment coaches are able to remove barriers by connecting students and families to employment and other services, and that's where the Goodwill part comes in, through Goodwill. Goodwill also manages the Excel Center, which is a free public high school that provides adults who have dropped out of school the opportunity and support to earn a high school diploma and post-secondary education while developing career paths that offer greater possibility for employment. Now, you're working with a much broader set of age groups.
Correct.
Okay.
First grade through high school.
Yeah, first grade through high school, right. That's 1 through 12. So, correct. I mean, you're trying to serve a lot of masters. first of all, like, where do you do this? Do you have a facility where you can?
We have two locations, one on West State Street and one on North Clinton.
Okay, and this has nothing to do with the Rise Center in the East Ward, right? This is totally
No,
different.
no, we have our own standalone locations.
Okay, and
We are at the East Trenton Community Center.
And how do people get to your location? After school, right? This is an after school program.
Yes, it's after. We also have a summer program that's coming up on June 26th. But the after school program, students are dropped off. It's a drop off program.
So dropped off by parents,
by parents,
caregivers.
Yes. Yes, eventually I'm in the plans of trying to get a van and a big building for both my sites, and I have all these great plans that we're looking to work towards. But yes, right now parents are dropping off the students, and our street leaders are coming straight from their high school to maybe on the bus, or they're walking. A lot of we strategically have our site locations where it's convenient for families to get to access.
Yeah, I mean I've heard weird stories in Trenton about kids who have to get to a place that's in like the West Ward, but they have to cross through the East Ward to get it.
And they don't want to do it.
Yeah, it becomes dangerous for them.
Right. So for that, in that case, that's why we have two site locations right now where those kids are able to stay on that side and these kids are able to stay on that side. And they don't have to like cross the bridge or
Yeah. And then once they get into your facility, it's like, paint the picture. Is it individual classrooms? Is it cubicles? How does it work?
Oh, so both sites are run differently and both sites are set up differently. But the process is students come in, our high schoolers arrive early first. They set up the day, they begin their homework from 3 to 4. The drop-off system for 1st to 8th grade, it kind of stagnates from maybe 3:30 to 4:30. Kids are being dropped off, but my high school students are there promptly at 3 o'clock, and they start their homework first. They get their homework out of the way, and then they prepare for my 1st to 8th grade to come in and help them with their homework.
That's great. And how many students do you serve all told?
Each site we have about 30 1st to 8th graders, and we have 10 street leaders, which are high schoolers at each site.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And like, if I'm adding up the numbers now, you have 10 in high school. I have 39 in high school. I don't have any 1st through 8th. Homeworks has a whole bunch of people, right? Who are high school age students. Right. So if all of the nonprofits sort of cobble together, how short would we be of serving the whole who needs it?
We wouldn't be sure. Honestly,
you know what I'm saying?
Honestly, I've tried to meet with so many people in the Trenton community that are doing nonprofits that fit along the lines of what I want for my high schoolers, and I'm letting them know, hey, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Let's go arm in arm and let's do this work together. I need some college readiness help. Can you bring your resources in here and help us with our essay writing and our FAFSA? Hey, I need my kids, they love health. Can we get some health programs in here? I'm just outsourcing everything as possible so that we could build a community together. Like, why reinvent the wheel when everyone's doing something that we can collaborate on? And the one goal is as the kids of the community, is our community. So why not do it together?
Absolutely. I'm so much in favor of pooling the resources that we have here, with anybody else who can use them. And in fact, it could actually work better. I had a fellow come in the other day and say he wants to teach financial management to our kids. Well, our kids are sort of spread all over the place. They're all over the state. They're not necessarily all in Trenton, all at the same time. And so the thing is, if he wants to have a meeting, I can't get him a critical mass of students who I know are going to show up for it.
Right.
Yet they could still use some financial planning information, right?
Right.
So if we put a couple of groups together and give this fellow critical mass, then I would think that we would all benefit.
Absolutely.
From doing that. Yeah. Cool. Right. All right. Now, another thing that they're saying would remove barriers, and I'm a firm believer in this, I got to tell you. This is individualized and personalized learning. There's a place called Options Charter School in Indiana. It's a free public charter school, 2 campuses. Every student at Options receives a personal advisor who serves to motivate, monitor, and communicate with the student and their family. Students also create basically an IEP, an individualized service plan that assists them from accomplishing academic, behavioral, emotional, and social goals with their advisor. You know, you said something earlier that really stuck with me about a child who is not learning, who then becomes a behavioral problem, and then no one in the class learns at that point. Okay. So I think of it in terms of math, because math is just so incremental.
Right.
And you miss a week of math because you had the flu or something. And when you come back, if you are not in a catch-up mode, when you come back, you could be lost forever just for getting the flu. Right?
Absolutely.
And after that, every day that your parents make you spend in a math class, you get closer to throwing a desk through the window.
Absolutely. Frustration.
Yeah, there's no way out.
Right.
There's no way out, and eventually the other kids are going to catch on.
Right. And then becomes an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Right. And then we deflect, and then we just before it even gets there, hey, why not just cause a disruption? Get kicked out, get sent to the dean's office, get sent to the principal's office. Don't have to worry about it. And we'll do this every day, you know? But then you'll never catch up. And the kid doesn't understand that they will never catch up. Right. They just see it as work avoidance and trying to save the embarrassment of not being able to do the work, which is super unfortunate.
It's so sad. And that's why I love the idea of individualized and personalized learning, because, you know, I want to remove all of those emotional barriers. I don't want any of that to be there. I want a kid to be able to look at his tutor and say, I got to ask you the dumb question, because if I don't, I'm going to stay dumb, you know? So
that's definitely
one. This, and the tutor's got to be supportive, you know, not laugh and say, ha, 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 you're so silly. Just help them, you know?
I'm a firm believer that every student learns differently. And that's a big push for me going forward in Urban Promise in this Urban Promise. We have a academy coming up for summer. So in the morning for Summer Academy, the students are coming 1st to 8th grade, and they will be having art, reading, writing, and Bible study each morning during summer camp. What I've incorporated now is I've learned that watching the after school since I've been here, a lot of kids, they are on different levels. And what frustrates me the most is the school say, okay, you're supposed to be on this grade level. But if I was in COVID and my mom couldn't read and my dad couldn't read, nobody in the house could read to help me, how can I possibly ever get to that grade level? And I'm now in 2nd grade and I started online. How am I learning? So, I'm sorry, I lost the train of thought.
So we were talking about individual instruction.
So now what I'm trying to do is I brought in a program for Summer Academy where each student is being assessed on the computer individually, and the program is giving them work where they are to meet them where they are and then build them up forward. Not to say, okay, you're on the 2nd grade level. You're supposed to be on 2nd grade level. Let's just give you 2nd grade work. No, you're in 2nd grade, but you're at a kindergarten level. Let's build you where you are and then move you gradually to get you there, but not just throw the 2nd grade level work at you because you learn differently. I can't put 20 students in the classroom who's learning differently at a different pace to learn reading. Everyone's not going to be able to keep up, and that's not fair. How do we help that one student who's been behind for months?
Absolutely. And you know, the funny thing about this report also, this stuff sounds really good. And you see this a lot. Like, you see programs that when you write them out on paper, when you look at the grant, they sound absolutely brilliant, right? And it's because they're just top heavy with features,
right?
But there is no information in here about the Options Charter School that has all this stuff. I mean, you know, an advisor to motivate, monitor, communicate with the student and their family. Look, listen to those features, man. How do you not love that, right?
Right.
Students create an individualized service plan, and they assist them with their behavioral goals and their emotional goals. I mean, all these things are features.
Right.
That's what they are. what we need to know is like who's actually now getting the job done, right? Who are the students who are taking advantage of all those features?
Right.
And that's something that is very, not that often talked about while we're busy impressing everyone with all the incredible things that are in our program. Now, use time and place differently. All right, this is how they're talking about it.
Right.
They're talking that this happens at the Excel Center. It helps students earn a diploma and prepare for post-secondary education and work through an accelerated curriculum in the core areas of language arts, mathematics, science, social studies. So I guess we're talking about here your more advanced academic, type of. This doesn't sound like remediation to me.
Right.
Allowing students to earn credits at a faster pace at no extra cost. So that's great with your highly motivated group. Okay, so I have a less highly motivated group. My kids would just as soon not go to high school.
Right.
So I want to use this as a way to get them out of school faster.
Fast track.
Right. That's what an accelerated program means to me.
Maybe they're advanced and they don't need as much schooling as everyone else does, and that's the accelerated plan.
Are you talking about Indiana or here?
Indiana.
In Indiana, yeah, it could be right.
Right.
Yeah, that much. We don't get any information about the actual student body.
Right.
Just sort of
just the bells and the whistles.
Like. Yeah. There's here. See, listen to this. 5 8-week terms. They're doing 8 weeks the same way we are offered throughout the year, and flexible schedules consist of both day and night classes, Monday through Thursday, with Fridays available for extra tutoring or support. So all this stuff is available. Marion Academy is a charter school network with 3 campuses located within an alternative school, a juvenile detention center, and a residential treatment facility. That's interesting. They're bringing it to the kids. They're not waiting for the kids to come.
A juvenile detention center in a school area seems like a systematic setup to me.
I think, well, let's make sure we're reading it correctly. 3 campuses. Okay, so there's 3 different campuses. One is located within an alternative school, I think. I think that's how this is intended. One is located in a detention center, and one is in a residential treatment facility.
Oh, so there's a school inside of a detention center. Okay.
We had a police department in my high school, though.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Atlantic City High School had a police precinct in the basement with dogs and everything. You tried to stay out of the basement,
I'm guessing it was a well-behaved school.
Oh, very. Very well. When we weren't killing each other, it was a well-behaved school. Goodness. Yeah. How about this one? How about number 4? Provide trauma-informed practices. Tell me about your staff. How many like paid staff do you have? How much volunteer do you have?
We have currently 3 full-time staff, 2 part-time, and our street leaders are also considered staff because they're hired to work with the after-school program. So it's 40 of them.
So do you do a trauma-informed training with the street leaders?
We do. We are actually in the process of planning ACEs training with the street leaders. The street leaders are our teenage group, a lot of bright young scholars, high school ranging from 9th to 12th grade, who we try to prepare them for career readiness as well as college readiness. They're also able to apply for our scholarship program. So we have a scholarship program as well. 100% of our street leaders graduate from high school. So we kind of guide them through high school, help them with the tutoring, help them with anything that they need to get them across the threshold and graduating. And our new goal is to make sure that they're ready for a career, not just college. I know that all of our students aren't going to survive in college, and I think it isn't fair to them to force them into that position. So we're looking for more of a career readiness and college readiness type of program moving forward, coming within the fall. I'm trying to set that up. I've only been here 2 months, but that is my goal. I really want to be able to provide the resources for them to help them with their careers, not just say, hey, great, you graduated from high school, cool, see you later. No, what's our next step? How can you build a future for yourself, whether that be going to a 4-year college or a vocational school? We're there to help.
That's such a key there, don't you think, that you just cannot pull a child through high school and then watch them spend the rest of their lives flipping burgers? It's just not right.
A lot of our students, it becomes a norm. If from generation to generation, everyone in the community has been doing it and surviving this way, it looks normal. It becomes normal. My job, I feel, is to make sure that they understand that it isn't normal and there's more to life. And I try to be an example of that. I originally, I come from Brownsville, Brooklyn, which is, I want to say 100% like Trenton, in the similarities in the community and actually what's going on in the community. It's very, very similar. And I played baseball most of my career, and I have friends from my community who are still struggling. And I'm now able to understand that why they're struggling. They didn't have the resources that I had, and they didn't have anyone to help them, guide them through to build a career for themselves. And I feel like it's my obligation to help our youth with those opportunities and with those resources to make something of themselves, because it's hard to see my own friends struggling as adults.
Yeah, like people you knew that you grew up with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That is really sad, and I would echo your sentiment that if no one at home, well, you said if no one at home speaks English, that could help the child with their homework during the pandemic. But basically, if no one at home ever graduated high school, if that never happened, I feel like lots of times I'm like living in 1935, because I hear on the other end of the phone, I'll be talking to a youth, and on the other end of the phone, I'll be hearing somebody say, like, you don't need that school. You're 16. Time for you to go out and earn some money. Right? And that is a post-Depression era concept.
And it's more prevalent than you think. The hairs on my skin just started raising, because I remember when I was working in the Bronx, and a lot of my high schoolers were 16, and that was their mentality. Like, college, I can't go to college. I have to work and help take care of my family. There's no college for me. This is it. Like, I'm just going to high school so my mom and dad doesn't go to jail or be taken away, because this is what we have to have attendance. But I'm preparing to work, and it's sad that they don't have the opportunity to live, in essence.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could do another whole show on what you just said about I have to earn and support my family.
I played baseball with a lot of those talents too. So many guys that I played baseball with that could have went to college, big D1 schools. I'm like, I can't, bro. I have to go work. Real solid ball players.
Oh, you're kidding.
Seriously.
People who gave up that kind of scholarship?
They didn't even pursue the scholarship.
Oh.
They didn't even pursue the scholarship. Yeah. Talented ball players.
Did you play ball in college?
Yeah, I played center field for St. Peter's University.
All right. How was that?
It was an amazing experience. And that's another experience I try to push to my kids. The experience was just amazing. Even prior to going to college, I was an all-city athlete in New York. So my experience was different in a whole. I was traveling all over the world, all over the United States. I was getting flown places. Scouts were talking to me. So my experience was a little different from others, but it was great.
Great. You were going to live forever.
Yeah. Injury.
That's what happened.
Yeah. St.
When?
Peter's actually, I broke my leg 7/7/7, July 7th, 07.
Mm,
The summer before I was going to go to college, and all the offers that I had on the table were taken off because now I was damaged goods. And St. Peter's was the only one willing to take a chance on me after
mm.
that.
Yeah. And so there was no pro stuff after that.
Nah, what the injury kind of caused more injury. So while I was playing in when I got to college, I broke my fibula and dislocated my ankle. I still have screws in my leg now, so it kind of started to wear on my knee, and I was never the same. I had an amazing freshman year. I led my team into probably about 5 different categories.
Wow.
And then sophomore year, my knee just started. I rushed my therapy, and my knee just wasn't. It was giving out. I was running down the first baseline, and my knee would just give out. So it was rough for me after that.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I've actually seen that. I used to coach softball teams in Central Park.
Really?
In the publishing league when I worked in New York Magazine and the Village Voice, places like that where I used to work. And I would always be coaching the softball team. And I actually saw a guy break his leg running to first base.
Really?
One time. It's incredibly ugly. Yeah. I mean, you just come down on the weight in a certain way at a certain moment in time. And
non-contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life just changes. That's how it is. So you have learned now, like when you're a ball player, I was a musician, your whole identity gets wrapped up in that.
I'm also a musician.
Are you really? What do you play?
I don't play any instruments. I'm a producer. I songwrite. I'm a published poet. I songwrite, and I make instrumentals.
Cool. All right. So, but I'm assuming that a good part of your self-identity was wrapped up in being a ball player.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's suddenly taken away from you. Wasn't so sudden, probably. There was probably a process there where you hoped you could rehab and everything else.
Right.
And then one day you come to the realization that I came to when I was 12 that I was never going to play shortstop for the Phillies. But you had to come to that realization that life was going to be different. So the question is, you were a student athlete. When you were in college, did you get the education?
If I'm going to be honest,
please.
I don't think I learned much until grad school.
Okay.
I can't tell you a lot of what I learned in undergrad, unless it was entertainment. All of my entertainment classes, because I started a entertainment company while I was in college as well. So I was playing baseball, and I had this company going. We had about 8 singers and rappers that were in the company. But yeah, I forgot my train of thought it going, but
well, are you a super high achiever, or are you like me?
Yes.
You have ADHD?
No, I'm a super high achiever. So anything that I'm result oriented. So once I'm in it, I'm in it. So the music group. So once the baseball was done and I realized, hey, this isn't going, I was full-fledged with the company, and the company did very well. We were touring all over, like we're doing college tours. Right now it transitions into something else called soca music, and I only have 2 artists, and they're kind of doing their own thing. But yes, I'm super goal oriented. And I have a plan for a plan. I always have a plan for a plan. I told my kids, you have to have the blueprint. You want to be a millionaire? Great, cool, fine. How do we get there? What are we going to do to get there? So that's where I am now. My goal was to always actually have an after school, have a business of myself. So I think this is more divinity. My whole process of, if I went through my whole story and how I literally got to Urban Promise, it has to be divinity. Each step in my life landed me closer and closer to where I am today.
But a whole bunch of ingredients also, though, that come together and make you be the force that you are at Urban Promise. I mean, playing baseball is something that's glorified, but when you're the player, you're learning all kinds of things about teamwork and how to be a sport, how to deal with crisis and stuff. That's all part of, of that.
Absolutely.
Because you see the guys who don't learn that and how short their careers are, right? In the pro ranks, when they don't learn how to control their affect. Right.
I learned my freshman year really, really quickly. Because like I said, I come from a community much like Trenton, where I thought these things were normal. So we're in the batting cages and all the seniors hit and everyone hits and we're done with hitting, and it's about 2,000 baseballs everywhere. Seniors leave, juniors leave, and they're like, hey, freshmen, sophomores, pick all those balls up. I'm looking at everyone like, you got to be out of your mind if you think I'm gonna sit here and pick all these balls and everybody else is leaving. But I had to realize they did it. The juniors and seniors did it. Who am I? How can I be above what has already happened? And from that moment on, I learned that it has to be an adjustment in my life, and I grew up.
Yeah, as hazing goes, picking up baseballs is not the worst thing that can happen to you.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Wait till you get in the locker room.
Right.
But it's kind of amazing how all those things do actually come together so that you're bringing all this information into Urban Promise. And something else that you said that I think is incredibly important is, and our children don't know this, and when I say ours, I mean yours and mine.
Right.
Have a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Always have a plan B. Count on things not working.
Right. Baseball was my plan A, and my master's degree was my plan B.
Yeah. So what's your master's in? What did you get in?
Business management.
Business management. Okay. All right. So how did you end up in social work? You must have this thing for people.
Honestly, it's a long story that I'll make really short. Out of college, I began coaching at a middle school a charter school who was just starting high school. So they had a full middle school, 5th through 8th grade, and only one 9th grade class. I was coaching the 9th grade softball team and baseball team, but some of the kids from the middle school wanted to practice. So I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, hey, we could do sort of like a college program where we're preparing middle schoolers for high school sports, and we're training them, but we're also making them do work after school. So they'll have a study hall like we had to do in college. Before practice, we had to sit down, we had to do a certain amount of hours for study hall and get our work done. So I went to the principal and was like, can I have 5 minutes of your time? I typed up this whole presentation, presented it to her, and she was just shocked. And she was like, okay, you could be our athletic director if you want to start this program, but I also need you to teach. So I taught phys ed at the high school as well as the athletic director of the school. No dean, so I ended up being the dean, the athletic director, and then coaching some of the teams to fill in, because now we have a basketball team, a baseball team, a soccer team, a softball team, and boys and girls on each side. Couldn't find coaches for all, so I'm filling in as we go. Became very overwhelming, and then I found a job in Brooklyn as a dean. So I got into schooling from coaching, and then once I became a dean in Brooklyn, it was just love at first sight. I built great relationships with the students. I was able to understand them. Those kids that were getting in trouble, I understood them because I grew up with kids the same way. So when they were getting in trouble for certain things, I understood that they couldn't read. I understood that they didn't understand the math, and then I would work with the teachers, and we would come together and figure out a plan for this individualized learning for this one student. And since then, it's just been a love for giving back to the community and making sure that kids have resources. Like I always bring it back to my friends in the community that I grew up with. A lot of them are struggling from my community. My friends from college, they're doing great. They're having the best lives that they can. They're married with kids, with their house and everything. But my friends who were in the community, in the neighborhood, they're finding it hard to make way for themselves right now. So my biggest push has been that, is just being able to be there for the kids that are my friends or who were my friends at some point in life, and making sure that I help the community know that there's more to life than what we've seen and what we've known. There's blue waters and there's like beautiful green grass somewhere, and we could build that in our community, and we could go to other communities and see it. But we have to have the resources to have good careers to afford to do these things, So
yeah, I just believe personally that a lot of that starts with the academics, because there's still bias out there. All of the racial things that have been going on for centuries are still there.
Right.
It's not like they aren't there, but there is more opportunity now than there was. And
Right.
every corporation now has a diversity and inclusion vice president, So, why work there? Just be the diversity and inclusion vice president. I'd like to be that, please. But you know what I'm saying? That
Right.
if you can shine, if you can get up and shine,
Mhm.
then you have a chance to be competitive,
Right.
for that kind of a position. So yeah, that's what you and I are talking about right now, is creating opportunity,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like if a traditional school isn't preparing children properly to take advantage of those opportunities, like you described the gap, what's the gap that we can fill
Right.
that will put them in a position to do that? And the final one, number 5, are you ready? Is
I'm ready.
empathy. Build build empathy. How do you not? I honestly, the group of people that I work with, I know very few females who have not been assaulted. Very few. It gets back to trauma informed and PTSD
Right.
and all
Right.
that stuff. I know very few females who haven't been assaulted. So, when a kid comes to me and says, I can't go to school I can't wake up before noon. Why is that? Well, because I don't sleep.
Why you
I
not
don't know.
sleeping?
Can you blame him for not sleeping? His head hits the pillow and memories come back.
Man, working as a dean, I've heard some of the most heartbreaking stories that first graders have gone through. I'm talking being kidnapped for a week and then having to come back to school.
Yeah.
And then they're just crying in the middle of the day and we're not understanding why. And then we have to figure it out with the social worker. He's scared because his mom is not with him and he's not sure about her safety. So he can't even learn in school right now because his mind is him and his mom was just captive somewhere and they barely got away.
Yeah.
And that's all he could think about. How can a first grader function every day like this?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And I've called homes where kids are getting in trouble and kids are adopted and dad's like, I'm ready to send her back. I'm like, Dad, I'm sorry I even called you. These are the type of things that kids are going through on a daily basis. And when I notice these things when I was a dean, I try to fill that and like, hey, you are loved. We are here for you. Because they're carrying a lot of baggage. They bring in their own baggage sometimes, and we're not informed all the time of what they're going through. And we're thinking, this kid's just sleeping in class and he's not paying attention. No, you have to take the time out to understand what they're going through adult issues that me in my 34 years of life couldn't even fathom going through.
Yeah.
They're going through at 6 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely remarkable. And you said the magic word, love. You just got to let them know somewhere, there's love for them somewhere. Because lots of I know the children I work with don't get it. Foster children don't get love generally. Right. They get tolerated.
Right. Right.
Until they curse or something, and then they get sent to a different place. But loved is not something that they ever experience. It's until they experience it incorrectly.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? As they're going through puberty. I can tell you, I've heard the same story so many times when I'll see like a 20-year-old female with a 8-year-old child or a 9-year-old child.
Mm-hmm.
And the story that I'll hear is my father was raping me, right? But the child isn't my father's. My sister's boyfriend said he would protect me from the father. So the child is actually my sister's boyfriend. What was he doing? Way to protect.
I actually had 2 students who dad was their grandfather, but he passed away. And the story went over everyone's head and nobody realized until I came into the school. And I'm like, I'm not understanding what's going on, but nothing could have been done because the grandfather passed away.
Yeah. Case closed.
Case closed.
Deal with it. Oh man.
So unfortunate. And this kid, trauma. Like you can tell these two students, the trauma within them, it's severe. It was borderline scary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's palpable. Absolutely.
Hmm.
How old were they?
One in first grade and one in third.
Oh, how are they supposed to process that?
They couldn't.
What a
And
situation.
the dad actually passed away in the bathroom in the home. And one of the students, he's actually scared to go in the bathroom.
Of course, he sees the ghost.
Hmm.
He sees the ghost in the bathroom. Wow, man. Well, you know what? I
It's
could
seven
talk to you
o'clock.
for hours, but
Okay.
you know what I need to do? I need to talk just a little bit about Pride Month.
Um, I didn't realize that my building here closes at 7.
Do you have to go?
I was supposed to be out of here like 6:30.
Oh, he said 6:30.
Yeah.
If you have to go, you have to go. It's cool, man. It's all right.
I could try to transfer this call to my phone and continue it.
Just do me a favor, though. You don't have to do
Yes.
that, but before you go,
Hmm.
tell everybody how to find you online and all the contact information.
UrbanPromiseTrenton.org. You can find all the information you need there about our street team leaders, about our summer program, about our after school program. You could even email me directly. My information is up there. We welcome all. We appreciate all. We appreciate anything and everything you can to do to contribute to what we're doing here.
Sean, thank you so much for coming. I promise we'll have you on again. And
I'm looking forward to it.
and I hope I see you around in the local civic organizations and stuff. Okay.
You will. Thank you for having me.
All right, it's my pleasure. Okay, you can
Bye-bye.
leave. Right, you can
Bye-bye.
leave the Zoom, and I'm going to continue with what is Pride Month. I wonder how many people actually know this. Now that, well, there's two things that are happening right now. The first thing is that members of the LGBTQ plus community are more visible at this point than they ever were, and I think they are showing their solidarity and trying to, I'm going to say, reclaim dignity, because that's what happens is they are so marginalized in our system. And, there's no need to wonder why the highest concentration of teenage suicide is among the LGBTQ plus population. I think generally speaking, and forgive me for generalizing, but outside of the very small, narrow community, they don't have a place where they fit. And not fitting, especially if you're a homeless teenager who's just been kicked out of your house because your parents don't understand when you came out. It just makes you want to kill yourself. It makes you want to think there's no end. And so please, if anyone's thinking that right now, dial 988. Stop listening to this show. Pick up your phone and dial 988 and talk to a trained peer counselor. Celebrating Pride cannot happen without acknowledging its roots. Pride Month honors the 1969 Stonewall Uprising in Manhattan. This uprising was a tipping point for the gay liberation movement in the United States, as police raided a gay bar in New York City and its patrons fought back. At this point in history, and this is in quotes now, homosexual acts, that's in quotes, were illegal across the country. This is 1969, when you get the crap kicked out of you for being acknowledged gay, walking down a street. Except for Illinois, these raids on LGBTQ inclusive spaces were not uncommon, according to history.com, however. Now, this June night in 1969 and the weeks following, LGBTQ plus activists, and we're talking primarily trans women of color, like the iconic Marsha P. Johnson, were a big part in this. This was not a single night event. It started it with the fuse was lit and that single night, but for the coming weeks, the LGBTQ plus community members were subject to tear gas, homophobic and transphobic slurs, and ongoing violence. And somebody out there, right into Facebook or right into YouTube, and tell me how that's different from Kristallnacht. Tell me how that's different from Germans rampaging through the streets and beating up Jews and breaking their storefronts and everything. This might not have been quite as destructive to the property as Kristallnacht was, but it was sure as hell destructive to the people. The action in New York prompted further organizing across the country, and LGBTQ plus folks mobilized in major cities, convening to create organizations like the Gay Liberation Front and Gay Activists Alliance. A year later, on June 28, 1970, the first Pride Parade started at the Stonewall Inn, as LGBTQ plus activists organized the Christopher Street Liberation March. As hundreds began marching, supporters from the crowd joined them, and thousands marched across 15 city blocks. This spurred Pride celebrations all over the world, fueling movements in Canada, Britain, France, Germany, Australia, and New Zealand. This, again, according to History.com. Although LGBTQ plus folks still seek further equity under the law, the Stonewall riots were the first major turning point in gay liberation, leading to today's celebrations, which include parades, parties, concerts, educational opportunities, memorials, and much, much more. And the only thing that I have to say about that is please be careful, because what's happened in this country in the, since the 2016 election is because it's become okay for people who were harboring hostile thoughts towards others to now act violently towards those people, and do it in the name of like religion or patriotism or something to make the offender feel altruistic about it. And as I know more gay people in my life, as I know more transgender people in my life, I can tell you for a fact that the people that I know are people. And I look forward to the day when we can stop defining people by the color of their skin and pretending that race matters, because it doesn't. I look forward to the day when we can stop defining people by their sexual proclivity or who they want to dress like. Why does that matter? Why does it even matter? I'm harking back to a time when my daughter was about 7 or 8 years old, and a family came to visit us, and they brought their little boy who was about 7 or 8 years old. And my daughter and her girlfriend took that little boy upstairs, and when they brought him back down, he was dressed like the most beautiful Victorian doll you could ever want to see. I mean, a young man was gorgeous in the first place. And when they were done dressing him and making him up, he looked like a porcelain doll. He was so beautiful. It was incredible. And his father was mortified, absolutely mortified. And I tried to put him at ease. I said, come on, it's just a moment in time. It's not a career. But why? Why do we get upset? And I think part of the reason that people do get upset over something that flies in the face of what they've considered normal is just because what they've considered normal is what they've known for how many years? 20, 30, 40, 50, 80? How many years do you have to have a certain way ingrained into your head until it makes it hard to switch? Like, for example, a friend of mine just came out as trans. And it's so hard when I speak of her to not use him, because I knew her as him for, well, let's just say most of his life, her whole life. See, I just did it again. It is so hard to get used to it. And here's my message about that. Just try, okay? People don't get offended if you try. All right? The people who are offensive to gay people and to transgender people are the ones who put up a fight, and try to tell you how they just can't get used to talking to you like the person you are now because they knew you too long as the person you were, and that's the person who they're going to relate to you as. If you're going to be that way, then you're an asshole. Okay? But if you just try, if you get it wrong sometimes, it's okay. They'll laugh with you as long as you try. I want to thank my guest tonight, the wonderful Sean McFadden, the executive director, the new executive director of Urban Promise Trenton, and all the wonderful ideas that he has and the energy that he brings. Next week, Tanisha Bankston is going to be here to discuss her new book. That's going to be fantastic. I got to tell you something. You want to hear a story of growing up in foster care? You are not going to believe it until you hear Tanisha Bankston's story. So let's make a date. Let's make a date to meet me here this same time next week. Thanks to our producer, Robin, to our engineer, Ruben. I love you both. Music provided by Mozart. He must still need the money. Join me next week. Come on, let's do it again. Stay safe. Until next time, let's make this week the best week ever. Good night, everybody.